If you were forced to choose between being loved and being feared, what would you choose? The obvious answer seems to be love. We want to be admired, respected, surrounded by genuine loyalty. But what if I told you that this was a mistake? That those who choose to be loved end up crushed by those who choose to be feared? History proves this. The rulers who trusted in the love of the people ended up betrayed. Leaders who followed morality over strategy lost everything. And that was why Niccolo Machiavelli became one of the most hated and misunderstood figures in history. The ends justify the means. This single sentence caused the prince to be banned for centuries and established Machiavelli as the enemy of morality. But what if he was right? What if, to win, you needed to abandon your idealistic view of the world and accept the naked truth of power? If everything you were taught about ethics, justice, and loyalty was just a convenient illusion? This is the question that Machiavelli forces us to face. And after hearing this story, you may never see the world the same way again. In 1539, Reginald Pole even stated, "Niccolo Machiavelli is the enemy of the human race." Machiavelli advised rulers not to focus on what is morally correct, but on what is practical and effective. He advocated the use of evil when necessary to achieve one's goals and the rejection of ethical concerns in the pursuit of power. Whether eliminating entire families, including children, or resorting to deception and manipulation to protect the state, no method should be discarded if it serves the ruler's purpose. Behind this cold and calculating, almost demonized philosophy hides an uncomfortable truth about human nature. Machiavelli exposed the brutal realities of power and success, and his teachings, although ruthless, offer valuable lessons that can be applied in different spheres of life to achieve success. Niccolo Machiavelli was born on May 3, 1469, in Florence, Italy, a period of extreme political instability and violence. Italy, at the time, was not a unified country, but a mosaic of city-states such as Florence, Venice, Milan, Naples, and the Papal States, all competing for power. These territories were in constant conflict, both among themselves and against foreign powers, such as France and Spain, who sought to expand their dominance over the region. In Florence, violence was a centerpiece of politics. The powerful Medici family, which ruled the city, was expelled in 1494, giving way to a brief and unstable republican government. Machiavelli witnessed up close the brutal game of rival factions, where influential families vied for control and mercenary armies could be bought and sold, further fueling the chaos. In 1498, his political career began to take shape shortly after the execution of Girolamo Savonarola, the Dominican friar who briefly ruled Florence. On May 24th, Savonarola was hanged as a heretic, and his body was burned in a public square. A few days later, Machiavelli, then 29, emerged from obscurity to assume the role of head of the Second Chancellery, responsible for external affairs and the territories under the rule of Florence. He closely studied Savonarola's leadership style and even mentioned it in The Prince. The broader context of Machiavelli's life was deeply marked by the Italian Wars, a period in which France and Spain fought for control of the peninsula. These conflicts brought devastation, economic hardship, and political instability, shaping Machiavelli's views on power and the art of governing. In 1512, the Republic of Florence fell again under the rule of the Medici family, and Machiavelli was accused of conspiring against them. As a result, he was arrested, tortured, and exiled from the city. This period of exile, after years of witnessing political chaos, constant changes of rulers, and the brutal realities of war, led him to write his most famous works, The Prince and Discourses on Livy, around 1513. Interestingly, The Prince was originally conceived as a gift to Lorenzo de' Medici, in the hope of regaining the favor of the powerful family after his political downfall. Although often remembered for his ruthless pragmatism and calculating view of politics, the prince also explores themes such as leadership, the role of fortune, the need to adapt, and human nature, elements that Machiavelli considered essential for any ruler who wished to maintain power. Its central objective was to guarantee the stability of the state using a power that was superior to that of all its rivals. For this can be said of men in general, that they are ungrateful, fickle, hypocritical, and disingenuous, avoiding danger, greedy for profit. And as long as you benefit them, they are entirely yours, offering you their blood, their goods, their lives, their children, when the need is far away. But when you really need it, they move away. Machiavelli's seemingly cruel methods of gaining and maintaining power were deeply rooted in his realistic view of human nature. He did not analyze people from the perspective of morality, but from the perspective of reality. He believed that human beings are inherently selfish, hypocritical, and driven by greed, and therefore should not be governed based on moral ideals, but rather according to their own interests. His disillusionment with human nature was reinforced by prominent figures of his day, such as Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia in 1431. Alexander VI personified hypocrisy during his papacy between 1492 and 1503. He prioritized his family's ambitions above his spiritual responsibilities, governing with ruthless political strategies. He expanded the power of the papal states through deception and nepotism, favoring his children, Cesare and Lucrezia Borgia. He even used excommunication as a political weapon to strengthen his influence. Witnessing this type of behavior from the highest religious authority of his time, Machiavelli consolidated his belief that morality and politics were, in practice, incompatible. For him, if human nature is as opportunistic and treacherous as he observed, we must always assume that others are conspiring against us. Trust no one, and you will never be caught by surprise. A saying found on the internet illustrates this thought well. If they throw stones at you, throw back bread, with a grenade inside, of course. In Machiavelli's view, success depended on adopting a skeptical and strategic look at people. By expecting the worst from others, you protect yourself from disappointment and betrayal. Power is not maintained through kindness or trust, but by understanding and harnessing the darkest aspects of human nature. If people are as cruel and unpredictable as Machiavelli believed, the big question is, how can a ruler control them? Fear over love. And so the famous question arises, is it better to be loved or feared? Perhaps the ideal would be both. But since love and fear rarely coexist, Machiavelli concluded that it is much safer to be feared than loved. For him, love was fickle and unreliable. People, according to Machiavelli, are loyal as long as it suits them, but they abandon their rulers as soon as their interests change. Love is fragile, a fleeting emotion that can dissipate with the slightest change of fortune. Fear, on the other hand, is a much more powerful and lasting force. Once instilled, it sticks in people's hearts and keeps them obedient even in the most difficult times. To ensure this continued control, Machiavelli argued that a ruler must apply severe punishments when necessary, always with the aim of preserving the stability of the state. He cites historical examples that reinforce his thesis, such as Cesare Borgia. Although ruthless, Borgia managed to unify and stabilize the Romagna region through fear and respect. His brutal but decisive methods prevented revolts and consolidated his rule. In the end, for Machiavelli, the ruler who bases his authority on fear has much more chances of maintaining power than one who trusts only in the love of his people. In Machiavelli's view, fear is an extremely effective political tool, capable of ensuring stability and achieving long-term objectives. Although these methods may seem cruel, their main concern was not morality, but the preservation of the state. For him, harsh measures were justifiable whenever they served the greater objective of protecting the government against internal and external threats. A ruler should not hesitate to act firmly if it meant maintaining order and avoiding chaos. In Machiavellian thinking, A leader's success is not measured by his goodness, but by his ability to maintain control and ensure the survival of the power he holds. People are meant to be petted or crushed. If we cause them small harm, they will take revenge. But if we destroy them, there's nothing they can do. If you have to hurt someone, do it in such a way that you don't have to fear your revenge. This was one of Machiavelli's most controversial ideas and the main reason why the prince was banned for centuries. He witnessed his homeland being ruled by greedy and ineffective leaders, all of whom were eventually overthrown because they were unable to maintain power. Faced with this reality, he concluded that, to guarantee the security of the state, a ruler should, in certain situations, go beyond moral codes. The ruler must be willing to do whatever is necessary, whether through deception, cruelty, or violence, to maintain control and protect the state against external and internal threats. One of his first pieces of advice was the importance of surrounding yourself with competent and loyal men. As he stated, the first method of estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Although he believed that truly virtuous men were rare, Machiavelli argued that finding them and keeping them close was essential to the success of government. However, he also argued that, in certain circumstances, drastic measures were indispensable. A ruler must ensure that any damage done to his enemies is so devastating that they never have the chance to fight back. His political philosophy was radical because it separated politics from theology and government from religion. Although he recognized the importance of religion as a factor of social order, he was opposed to the idea that religious, moral principles should influence the decisions of the state. This rejection of the traditional view that rulers should act in accordance with moral and religious laws, especially those of Thomas Aquinas, was another reason for the controversy surrounding the prince. For Machiavelli, the state was sacred, and the ruler's supreme duty was to protect it at any cost, even if this required abandoning traditional conceptions of morality. The lion cannot protect itself from traps, and the fox cannot protect itself from wolves. It is therefore necessary to be a fox to recognize the traps and a lion to scare the wolves. In this classic metaphor, Machiavelli advises rulers to embody the qualities of a fox and a lion. The fox represents intelligence, cunning, and the ability to adapt, essential qualities for a leader to identify hidden dangers and maneuver in complex political scenarios. Being like the fox means knowing when to deceive or manipulate to avoid traps, which are inevitable in the game of power. The lion symbolizes strength, power, and the imposition of authority. To maintain control and ward off threats, a leader must demonstrate firmness and be willing to command respect, instilling fear in his adversaries when necessary. The strength of the lion ensures that once threats are identified, they can be decisively eliminated. Machiavelli was pragmatic in his approach. I knew that not all problems can be resolved through direct confrontation. If a ruler can win through deception rather than war, that should be his choice. He understood that many people are guided by their immediate interests, making them vulnerable to manipulation. Human beings tend to believe what is convenient for them at the moment, even if it comes from a deceptive source. Machiavelli realized that astute leaders could exploit this trait to achieve their goals. This view reflects his deep understanding of human psychology. People want to believe in what favors them, and an effective ruler must know how to use this fact to their advantage. However, deception and manipulation require a delicate balance. The ruler must be cunning enough not to be caught by his own wiles, nor fall for the plots of his enemies. Machiavelli believed that virtuous leaders, although noble in their ideals, would have great difficulty thriving in the harsh realities of politics. For him, success required pragmatism and adaptability, and a ruler must be willing to set aside moral codes whenever necessary to ensure the maintenance of power. He argued that leadership requires courage, a willingness to take risks, and at times make morally questionable decisions. In Machiavelli's view, politics is a brutal game, and a person bound by rigid moral values will be easily overcome by someone who is willing to do whatever it takes to maintain control. Therefore, he viewed leaders who relied solely on ethics with skepticism, as he believed they would hesitate in the face of the extreme measures often required to guarantee the stability of the state. This philosophy aligns with Friedrich Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch, an individual who creates his or her own values without being bound by the conventional morality imposed by society. Machiavelli argued that a ruler should be self-sufficient, maintaining his main loyalty towards the state. If a leader allowed morality to constrain his actions, he would risk losing the power necessary to protect his people and his territory. While his ideas are pragmatic and offer valuable insights into human nature and political survival, they come with a cost. Its emphasis on the use of fear, manipulation, and brute force neglects the rights and well-being of individuals. Machiavelli focused on preserving the state, often without considering the impact on the people who make it up. By rejecting morality in politics, he sets a dangerous precedent where the ends justify the means, which can lead to long-term chaos and instability. A government without a sense of justice or humanity can become oppressive and end up alienating its own people. Furthermore, Machiavelli underestimates the role of religion, which has historically helped shape societies and served as a moral guide for rulers. While he recognized its usefulness as a tool of control, he ignored its deeper impact on social cohesion. Machiavelli's strategies can be effective in certain circumstances, but his rejection of moral principles and human rights can lead to a cold and ruthless government. The secret is to absorb what is useful, discard what is not useful, and adapt the concepts to your own reality.